we found ourselves with a terribly great problem, was that we not only were open to the public from our brick and mortar, but this online store, started having a life of its own.
Hello and welcome to The Real Bottom Line. I am so excited to have my guest here today, Nathalie of Rousseau-Chocolatiers. Welcome, Nathalie.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, excellent. Now, I love your stuff. So let's go back to your story though. So sure. You and your husband started how did you meet first off, and then how did you end up in Halifax, and how did you end up with a chocolate shop?
Bit of a journey there. Yeah. So we met back in 2008 in a little town called Wakefield, Quebec. And that's about half an hour north of Ottawa, where I'm from. And Julien was here on a work visa, working in a beautiful little hotel up there. And he was doing all the pastries and desserts and things like that. And we had met, true to myself, in a bar. And it kind of kicked off from there. We became friends, and then I started working with them. And as a waitress there, I had just come back from living out west in the Rockies for a while. And from there, we kind of just explored. I'm a huge traveler. I love to travel, and so does he. So when his visa was up for Canada, we went to France and lived there for a few years.
And he's from France, right?
He's from France. He's from the south of France, right on the Mediterranean coast, near Cannes and Saint-Tropez. So gorgeous area.
And you're here in Halifax. Okay, I'm going to come back to that at some point.
No, that's where you come in. That's your retirement, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then when we've exhausted all of our visas for both of our countries, we then had to look to other countries to live, to be able to pursue our life together at that point. So we moved to the UK and spent some time there as well. And later on moving to Scotland for a couple of years. And that was really the pivotal moment for us, where the chocolate shop dream became a little bit more reality. Lots more planning. You're in the middle of the Scottish Highlands. Other than going for long walks, there's nothing else to do really than to plan a business. So that's what we did. And he and I just kind of had it all down to a T. The moment we arrived in Halifax back in 2014, I already had lined up meetings to go visit commercial spaces. So I was very, we were working with very limited budget. So I wanted everything to kind of fit right away so that we could get started as soon as possible. And it kind of really magically all happened that way. So it was fun.
Now, a lot of people know that I do work with my husband, but what's it like to have that dynamic? Are you guys able to turn it off when you go home, or is it all work all the time?
So I think that now that we have kids, our attention probably goes to them a lot more at home. But I would say that for years, many years before even opening up the shop, we worked together. We would actually purposefully source out, businesses and chocolate shops and other things to work together. So it didn't just happen overnight. I think it was gradual. And a lot of people look at us and think, oh my gosh, how come you haven't killed each other yet? So. But
I've never heard that one either, Nathalie.
It is a fine. It's a learning process, I think. Respect involved. Respecting each other's capabilities and experiences, and allowing the other person to make good judgments when you have less experience in that field. And it's just a nice kind of balance, I think. And if you don't tread on his territory and he doesn't tread too much on yours, then it's kind of okay.
So you each kind of have your lane that you're playing in, different responsibilities that you're focused on, and then you would come together to work on the business from time to time, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So he is the person who makes the chocolate.
Correct.
So what's his background? How did he get into chocolate?
So the way he describes it is he's very, very non-academic. He never did well in school. And in France, they have this cool thing where at the age of like 15 years old, you can decide whether or not you want to go the academic route or learning a trade. And he chose the trade. He chose pastry. Even though his father was a pastry chef, he clearly says it had nothing to do with that. He just thought it sounded fun.
Okay.
And so at 15, they go in and they study this trade. And so at the age of 15, he was doing half schooling for his trade and half like working in pastry shops to get that. Yeah. So he started at 15. He did the extensive one. So it's 5 years of studies and training in all things pastry, chocolate, ice cream, confections, all of that. And yeah. So
Nathalie, how have you avoided becoming 500 pounds?
That's a good question. I don't know. I certainly did avoid it. So.
I have to say, I've had your products and they are so yummy. They're very, very good. The macarons, tell me about those, because I find those are pretty spectacular and I've never had them as good as I've had them at your shop.
Thank you. We hear that so much. People that have actually like come off a plane from Paris and said, I tried all of them and they're not as good as yours. So it is very humbling, very heartwarming. The macarons are actually a recipe that he developed from one of his previous employers, who was his age, a very young person in France that employed him. They actually became very good friends. And it was a combination of his recipe and Julian's recipe, and it kind of made this like super macaron, you know, like the best.
Yes, it is. I concur.
It's a hybrid macaron.
And so what's interesting, so he's kind of back of shop and you're front of shop. So tell me about your role in the businesses.
So my role right now is to oversee daily operations, making sure our team is, you know, performing well and also, you know, comfortable and happy and, you know, doing all the things that they should be doing front of house.
Yes.
And with this past year, my job is also in the back doing lots and lots of administrative work, lots of content creation for the website, lots of fine tuning there, making sure our website's functioning as it should, you know, for 2020, 2021. And because
did you have to add an e-commerce element?
No, we already had ours, luckily.
Yep.
But it was dated since 2014. We had literally, you know, had to
set it and forget it.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to do a lot of cleaning up, but now it's exactly the way I wanted it, and I envisioned it, and it's very user friendly. It's a perfect platform for us. Yeah.
So you have you started out at a small shop, and now you've moved into a bigger spot that's more cafe like, that people can kind of hang out and enjoy your products. And but you also do wholesale and you ship. How far do you ship?
We ship across Canada and the US at the moment.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes. So people can go online, they plug in the address, and then our website just tells them all the options. So if they're local, delivery, pickup, shipping, if they're, you know, across the country, all the different shipping options, carriers, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, that's cool. So how did you decide to do wholesale? Because I don't think I see so many smaller, like, I want to call you a retailer, but it's not really a retailer, but you know what I mean, is that a bakery type operation, and they focus so much just on where they're actually located as opposed to going further afield. Is this something you had as a strategy from the get-go, Nathalie? And how has it gone? What have you done to build that up?
So it's funny, Wendy, when we first opened, I did so many cold calls and I got so discouraged because nobody knew who we were. It was very, very disheartening. I actually, like, you know, probably in tears said to Julien, I don't want to do this anymore. So I put it aside and I stopped calling, and I focused on what I was really good at, was, you know, the service in the store, and we did have the online platform, so at least, you know, we were out there. And all of a sudden, little by little, we started getting calls and more calls, and people wanting to stock our products. So whether it be hotels, for their amenities for their customers, little, gift shops across the province, they were all kind of trickling in. And it became this thing that I never actually put any kind of real dollars into to get more wholesale accounts. It's word of mouth, and all of a sudden, the airport started stocking us, and then the girl that was ordering for the airport, she moved to Toronto. Now the Toronto airport was getting in from us. So it was grown very organically, and which was great because it allowed me, because I'm a one-woman show. We don't have any, there's no one else working.
There's no sales force.
There's no sales force. There's no admin. So it kind of worked for me because I was able to stay on top of it. And one of our goals pre-pandemic was to really, really focus on growing that portion of the business. It works well for us because it's not a traditional wholesale model, right? Because we make the product and we sell it. So it's not like we were a middleman trying to make, our 50% up on the price that we paid. Anyway, the margins are typically a bit higher for us than it would be in a typical wholesale environment. So
because you have no middleman.
Exactly. So I feel like a lot of people, when they're trying to be strategic, they say, wholesale may not be the best option for profits. But in our case, I mean, it has been really good. And for me, it's not just about getting the product out for wholesale and the price and all of that. It goes beyond that for me. In my brain, I think, well, if one day our products are seen in stores in Vancouver or, that's just promotion for me. Like if we're making money getting our products out there at a wholesale price, and not only that, we're getting our products in front of the eyes of different people, buyers, customers. For me, that's exactly the reason why we do it,
That's so cool. With the pandemic hitting us last year, how did that affect you? Because I mean, you're in Nova Scotia, so you've had a couple of lockdowns. We're in the middle of one right now. How have you pivoted? What have you done to maintain business? Did you see a drop? What, tell us about the last year.
So our last year, like many businesses, when the pandemic first hit in March, we laid off our entire staff just to kind of pause and regroup and allow Julien and I to really think of our next strategy. Excuse me. And we basically operated all on our own, because at that point, like everyone else, we had no idea what the future was in store. So keeping all the staff wasn't comfortable working. It was quite difficult, actually. I was 8 months pregnant, so that didn't help. And so we got through that pretty well, because we're a business who, our main business is throughout the winter months. And so all of Christmas, Valentine's, Easter, Mother's Day, those are the 4 big ones for us that really impact our year. So operating with like basically 0 staff from like March all the way to May last year really, really allowed us to hold on to some of that cash flow. And although we were exhausted and we had no family life, it was a sacrifice yet again that we had to make to kind of think through the next steps. The summer was quiet, and we still, we continued to operate. We were allowed to operate. People were coming in for ice cream as per they normally do. Way less people, way less walking. But I mean, we had 70% less staff too. So that really, it really mirrors, what we were experiencing. And then we've climbed back up to 8 staff, which is amazing. So our winter was very, very successful. We found ourselves with a terribly great problem, was that we not only were open to the public from our brick and mortar, but this online store, started having a life of its own. And we were selling it was 70% online and 30% in store. And it was incredible, because we were basically found ourselves with 2 separate stores to stock and to fill from. So it really boosted our sales for last year, which was very exciting. And you know, we when this latest lockdown happened, we knew that we couldn't operate the way we did in March 2020.
Yeah.
So we decided to split our team into 2 work bubbles. And so that way we're limiting our, our frequency of seeing each other. I'm not seeing half of my staff. I haven't seen them in over 2 weeks. So we're doing, working together remotely. And then the team that works with us 3 days a week is my right hand, my newest manager that we've hired. And Julian's also training someone new in pastry. So it's very exciting.
That's exciting. Oh, wow. Do you find it hard? Does he find it hard to train that? Because that's such a specific skill set. And how does he keep his recipe secret?
Well, they're not secret. It's part of, there's probably some aspects of it that are a little bit locked down, like the macaron, but otherwise, for him, Julien comes from a culture of like knowledge sharing. So he learned from great chocolatiers back in France, and when you're doing a trade like that, that's also very, very fickle, and it could disappear over time. You really want that knowledge to be transmitted. So yeah, it is nice to see new young people kind of gaining that knowledge. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. You spoke of being 8 months pregnant at the start of COVID, and you have 2 children now, which is awesome. How has that been as a business owner and a new mom? I mean, I looked to the news recently, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but the Nick's founder said, if you have any issues with me being pregnant, you're off this list. And she kicked some people off the list. And so I feel
I
like
was so proud of her for saying that. I was so proud. She's a game changer, right?
Right. And it takes a few leaders like that, Nathalie, to do that. So what's your journey been like, and how have you found that anyone treats you differently as a result of having children versus not?
So for me, I mean, I had my daughter in June 2020, and I was at work basically a week later with her strapped to my body, working away. And people would see that, and I would post. I'm very open. My view of social media has kind of changed with the pandemic. I'm much more emotionally involved in my posting. So I don't just hide behind the lens anymore. I get in front of the lens, and I was posting, things about me working with Maya, with me, and people respond to emotion, right? So people were congratulating me for, just doing everything. Business people have to do what they have to do, right, to get it done. And nobody was there to hold our hands, and nobody was there really to help us. So we need to, we need to figure this out. So I think that for me, once I was able to kind of make peace with the fact that I wasn't going to get a maternity leave ever, because I didn't get one with my first one either. And
I remember him hanging out at your shop.
Yeah. So, I mean, once I made my peace with that, I kind of embraced the fact that this is also just a testament to what you need to do to survive, what you need to do to, like, examples that I'm showing my kids, the legacy that they're going to get when they look back and think, their parents had to work hard to get what they need and build this business. So I see it more that I'm trying to, transform it into a positive thing, that it's a positive example. And I wouldn't recommend, sacrificing everything all the time, but when it's time to do the hard things, you have to do them. There's no point in self-pity and crying too much over that kind of thing when you have no power over it.
Yeah, that's interesting. With regards, if you were to look back, what do you think has been your biggest success along the way so far?
Definitely moving to our new location has incredibly transformed our business from being a 2-person operation, my husband and I, in our previous location, to a 8-person staff operation. So it allowed us to really have more visibility, At the time, 2018, 2019, there was loads of foot traffic. There are loads of cruise ship passengers there in the summertime. Very kind of, central location, beautiful location across the street from Peace and Friendship Park. So those were just huge positives for us. And it really, for me, up until now, it's created our success that we have today.
When you think about your journey with employees, so many small business owners have this push-pull, I can't afford them, but I can't afford not to have them. So when you went to the new space, it almost was like you didn't have a choice from the sounds of it. You had to start hiring and dealing with having staff.
Yeah, and that was that was a bit scary for us who had never had any staff. Also, from a leadership perspective, you can't forget that you're going from managing yourself to then managing 4 or 5 other people. If you don't have leadership within you, I guess it is something you have to work on, and you have to learn and kind of really put some focus on that, because if we don't, then you can kind of lose your way and your team won't be united and all of that. So that was a learning curve for me. And I think that if you don't spend the money to get the team, then you're just struggling and your head's all underwater and you're trying to do all the things and wear all the hats, and it's just it leads to burnout, and it leads to feelings of failure. And I think that for us, even though our first year in 2018 we were not profitable at all, because we were just getting started in that location, it took at least 12 months to sort of see more of a return on our investment there in terms of staffing. And but you kind of have to just do what you don't go too big too fast. That's something that Julien and I have always really, really stood by when we first opened, and also with this new location. We've seen lots of business people go, too big too fast, and they crash and burn. And I mean, sometimes the risk can really pay off, but other times, most of the time, I find they don't. And so starting out small and building and building and building it's been the key to our success, that's for sure.
And I find that people are kind of all over the map in terms of, sometimes people are number avoiders in terms of managing their finances or looking at them. If they have money in the bank, then everything must be okay. How has your journey been with numbers? Like, were you ever a number avoider, or have you always been someone who was like, show me the books?
No, sadly, I am not good with, I was not good with money. I was not good with numbers. I was one of those people, hey, we're in the positive in the bank. We must be doing okay, right?
Yeah.
And so for the first few years, that was definitely us. Julien was more involved in like figuring out, costs and profits and all of that.
Yeah.
And then with the spending, I mean, if I go back in my own personal life, I was never good with money, never. And Julien, when I met him all those years ago, really, he had an amazing relationship with money, and very, very dedicated in saving money. He's like the little squirrel, that squirrels everything away. And so I didn't understand the concept at the time, but I mean, he definitely taught me how to manage my money much better.
Nice.
And the business, with all the financial risks we were taking, it also like kicked into high gear my consciousness about spending and not spending, right? So and then when we met you, I mean, then it just becomes so much more clear. There's like fine tuning that happens. You're much more, knowledge is power, and the more you know about how your finances work, the better you're going to manage it. And I think that it just kind of all unraveled into like being more self-aware of how money comes in, how money goes out, and what you can and can't control.
I love that. And it feels like you've become more deliberate with your money, right? In that, and I think that's a natural progression for a sustainable business like yours, right? Like it's not sustainable if you don't know how the foundation is built.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you were to look back at 7 years ago, because you're celebrating 7 years of
Yes.
business now this week, aren't you? That's awesome.
Yes.
That's amazing when we look at the statistics of how long, that means you've passed a number of hurdles that said if you're, people who fail have done it in the first couple of years type of stuff. But looking back, if you were to go back 7 years ago and you go, if I had one book or one TED Talk or one piece of content that you've consumed since then that you went, I wish I had seen that then.
I love it.
Is there one that you have?
So I love it. I am right now taking a course, an online course from Yale University, and it is called The Science of Happiness.
Ooh.
And I tell you, this should have been transmitted to me way, a long time ago. So my sister told me to take this course. She took it and she was like blown away. We live in an era where, you want more things. And the more things
it is enough, right?
Yes. And so for me, I spent the good majority of my life thinking, oh, I'm so excited for the day that I'll be able to have this. And I'm really looking forward to being able to afford this. And it's like this, I don't see it as a negative, because it's really, lit a fire under our bums to get what we want. But I do sincerely believe that, money isn't happiness. So it doesn't matter if you buy the newest Mercedes, and after a while, scientifically, you're going to get sick of that Mercedes and you're going to want something else, right? If you have a mansion, same thing. Yeah. And the science of happiness is taught by a psychologist, and she, the studies are just so inspiring, is that a person becomes too familiar or too used to it. So their brain is just like, I have all this stuff, but I'm not happy. Or why? It should be like living the dream. And for me, I've never had all this stuff, but I've definitely wanted all this stuff. And this is put in perspective that the science is that you should be spending your money on experiences, on those type of long-lasting memory things, right? So Julien and I, having traveled so much, and I understand that concept, right? We have spent loads and loads of money on traveling, and it's brought us, happiness and experiences much more valuable than anything else can bring. So I guess in the beginning, when you're just trying to get to that, financial benchmark, you should also have that knowledge that, instead of aspiring to the latest thing, you should just aspire to the latest, like, what's the next, adventure I can go on with myself or my family that'll bring me more wholesome experiences in my personal and professional life, So it's really kind of done a 180 in my brain with this course.
Have you changed anything in your business as a result of that, or your life? What have you changed?
Well, I think that for our projects for the future, we really want to get involved with our cocoa suppliers and the cocoa suppliers, so the agricultural side, and I think we want to learn much more about it. And so actually traveling to those areas and meeting the farmers, looking at the processes of where our chocolate comes from, that's something that I'm very out of touch with. It's not something I've done yet. Yeah. So those are real aspects that I want to be able to go out and experience and bring back with us and educate our customers on it, have some videos about our experience showing in store, and really, going from in our customers' mind, going from where it comes from and how it ended up here and in their hands, right? So
I love that. So it's adding to the story, because your story is already fascinating, but now you're like, what's the backstory on my stuff, and how do I bring that story to my customers? Because then now you've changed the chocolate into an experience.
That's right. And it would be full circle for us, because our North Star is already, we make life's moments sweeter. So that's what we base all of our decisions on in store. It's what we base our training on with staff. It's not about the chocolate per se. It's about what the feeling is when people get it, because this is just from feedback from our customers, right? It's like, I can't spend Christmas at home without there being a box of Rousseau chocolates on the table, or else it wouldn't be Christmas. So those kind of anecdotes that I hear year after year after year really just, it just feeds into that, right? That we're here to create moments and in special moments in people's lives, through chocolate.
Yeah, it's just one tool to be able to do that. Well,
Yeah.
I actually love that. You brought up an interesting point. Have you had any issues with supply chain management?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Our supply is decreased immensely. Prices for chocolate have soared to like unspeakable heights. We've had to deal with all of that in the last year, plus no customers. So how do you manage that? It's as a chocolatier, chocolate always increases every year, sometimes every 6 months. And in the past years, we've only increased our prices like twice in 7 years. So you really can't. You really have to. It's a learning game of how to balance your price and your with a constant changing supplier price, right? So yeah, it's not easy, but I think that there are a number of things that we have done to basically kind of absorb that. So just there's a lot of government programs out there to help with companies that can still, for staffing and all of that. So I mean, if anyone, business owner, whatever that's listening should really look into those if you haven't already, because it allows you to have some sort of a help if you can qualify and make better decisions and absorb all the costs. Like it's not just chocolate that's soaring, right? Like, let's be real, everything else is skyrocketing. So so there has to be creative ways to deal with that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge. I think I wasn't aware of how bad it was in chocolate, because my mind just went to lumber. But so you had to take a hard look at every step in your process to see, could you pull cost out, is what I'm hearing.
Essentially, yes. We have made some decisions on, let's say, having less inventory, less variety of products, that kind of thing. So that really helps to kind of keep costs down.
Okay.
But and also you think, well, this isn't forever, right? This, as soon as it's gonna get back, I'm hoping that things will
settle down from a supply chain management perspective.
Yeah.
Well, that is so cool. I know Kelsey has a question, so I'm going to bring him in now for his question. Here we go. Go, Kelsey, go.
Hello once again.
Oh.
Very insightful, and very real. So good for you. It's like, don't hold punches, because I think a lot of people are worried about too many feelings. Like, you have to be conscious and be nice, but it's also, you have to call a spade a spade. So I think if people really listen, that's great. A point of order, if you wish. You talk about the success of happiness, or science of happiness, which I've looked at that course as well, and it looks phenomenal. Yet you say you sacrifice things, but could that not be a delayed gratification? It's just the language when people say, hey, I have to work all these hours and whatnot. And that's where I'm just wondering is, do you have a new context with that, with the science of happiness?
So is she positioning her work-life balance differently? Is that your question, Kelsey?
Yeah, sorry, I guess it wasn't it's use the word as sacrifice. Like, people have to sacrifice things, and it's more hours here and there. Especially when COVID hit, you have to sacrifice less family time, but it's not delayed gratification because you're doing it for the better good. For me, it's the framing of the word. And then with the Science of Happiness course, does it reframe it as a sacrifice to a delayed gratification, or is there another word, or is it a sacrifice?
That's a good question, Kelsey. I would see it like the sacrifices that me and other business owners have gone through in the last year. They are necessary sacrifices. I don't think that if anyone doesn't want to make sacrifices, then, I don't know how they would survive otherwise. So those are just necessary things that, a world pandemic might throw at you, right? But the Science of Happiness is really an eye-opener in terms of what are you working towards, right? Like all these sacrifices that we've had to do, myself and Julien, for our business and our family over the past year, it teaches you to look past that. So how about we look, we fast forward in a year, 2 years, 7 years, 8 years, and see what those sacrifices might bring to us. So by doing what we did, we ensured the continuation of our business. So we didn't just close. We're not just another statistic that closed our doors in 2020, but we persevered, I guess, and continued to do everything and anything that was necessary to allow our business to continue. And thankfully, that combined with our amazing, and loyal customers, we were able to kind of ride that wave out. And we're not in the clear, but there's definitely, with everything going on, it feels like there's more of an end in sight than there was 12 months ago. And the Science of Happiness, to attach that, when I'm listening to the course in present days, I automatically think back, well, okay, that type of experience happened. It will bring us the fact that our business is still alive today. It has brought us that. And, and by that fact, hopefully we have continued success for years to come. And the Science of Happiness, I guess, is also can be perceived as our business is our baby, right? It was our first turn. We had this business when I turned 30. And to see it continue is gratification itself, right?
Every minute in business is an experience, that is for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was great. Yeah.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
What I haven't asked you, Nathalie, that you think is an important lesson you've learned that would help others?
Well, I talked about, and I talk about this a lot, is the image of a ladder. If you race up a ladder, you might fall down, right? So Julien and I have always taken it one step at a time, very cautiously. That doesn't mean that we didn't take risks, because you have to. I think for the business, you have to take risks. Moving to this new location with a 6-month-old in tow and all this money, all this debt, my family thought we were absolutely bad, They just could not understand where we came from, but it was a move that we felt in our hearts and, on paper would work. So, but that again, it wasn't, we didn't bite off more than we could chew, I guess. And
no pun intended.
No pun intended. But I do really just fundamentally believe, like, small business owners, for sure, just do what you can. Don't try to do too much too fast. And because you're only one person, or you're only two people, and you really, if you're starting out, absolutely just take it slow. And even when you're not starting out, like today, right? It's my business. I kind of see it as, we've done the infancy stage, we've done the toddler stage. I'm somewhere in between middle school and high school, I would say,
Almost ready to give up daycare.
So I think that we're still, and it's fun because I love to learn, and I'm still learning lots, but we still apply that rule, I guess, in our everyday life, is just don't take on too much, too much at once, and build it up gradually. And, but in the business world, still take risks, because it's important. That's what gets you ahead,
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think that there is a lot of sexiness put on fast tracking your growth and, you know, the hockey stick. So I think that that is a refreshing outlook in the sense of, you know, deliberately planting, deliberately making decisions. And it's not that you're not taking risks, but you're aware of them. You're thinking that it's worth it at the other end. And so you're taking those calculated risks as opposed to just taking risk.
Absolutely. And the other portion is, you know, growing fast isn't bad, but you also need to know when to reach out for, you know, help with optimization and scaling and all of that, because, you know, those are skills as well that we're not all born with, right? Sometimes we need to leave it to the professionals to help us. So that's something we did in 2018 is we had a consultant come in and help us with, you know, how to optimize everything and for growth.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, growing is not bad. I think it's, and it depends on the industry you're in, but, you know, someone like me in my industry, because I can speak for myself, it really helped us kind of, you know, be on the right track for success long-term. I think also a point that I want to make with this is that everything nowadays, and you'll probably agree with me, is right now. Everything has to be done immediately.
Yeah.
And I think it is refreshing, as you said, to just be able to say, you know what, don't do everything immediately. Just take your time, one step at a time. Everything will happen. Like, I feel like, you know, it's also the way I teach my kids. Like, don't get frustrated because you can't do the puzzle right this second. It takes time to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of the same for adults.
Oh my gosh. Nathalie, thank you so much for your time today. And I believe the real bottom line is be a deliberate ladder climber in your business.
Right.
Thank you, Nathalie.